Hello friends. I have been using puppets since the early 1980s. Initially with a local group of the World Development Movement, now called Global Justice Now, to promote WDM Fair Trade Tea and later Fair Trade Bananas. And I'm recording this during Fair Trade Fortnight, so nearly 40 years later, we are still working together with Tradecraft and the Fair Trade Foundation to promote trade justice. These days, climate change is additionally putting millions of lives in danger, hitting the most vulnerable, affecting access to food, security and safety. From rising sea levels and cyclones in Bangladesh to flash floods and drought in Tanzania, the climate crisis is a matter of urgency. And so the biblical imperative calls us to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. It's easy to be overwhelmed by the scale of the problem that faces us. It's easy to look away from the news and to ignore the impact our daily habits have on people who live across the world. But as we'll see in the following play, Counting the Cost, we can have a positive impact as ethical consumers, finding out where our food, clothing and other purchases come from, and if growers and producers are well treated. Enjoy.
Hello everybody! Would you just look at this great bargain I got? It only cost me £10. Hi Joy! What's this about bargain of yours? Just how many people do you think had a hand in getting that dress to the store? And where in the world did all the processes happen to get it there? And how long do you think it took folk to make that fabric? Never mind, sew the coat. Well, here, I never thought about that. Wait. On the label it says, made in Bangladesh. Well, think about this. Somewhere else in the world, many folks had to prepare the land, then weed, sow, remove pests, harvest the cotton that made that coat, carry heavy sacks and load them into trucks. Then the cotton was bought, packed, transported somewhere else in the world to be washed, spun, woven, dyed and printed, and transported again to Bangladesh, where other folk had to design, measure, cut and sew that dress. Wow! I never thought about that. How could £10 ever pay for all those folks? Exactly. And did you ever remember hearing on the news in March 2013 about the collapse of an 8-storey commercial building in Dhaka, Bangladesh, when 1,130 garment workers died and about 2,500 people were injured? The factories manufacture apparel for leading brands. I did hear about that story. It must have been awful. But I didn't think about the connection. Wasn't the owner of that building to blame? Well, Now, of course, the disaster was the lack of good governance and the corruption of the owner. But there was also the decision of the managers to send workers back into the factories with cracked walls due to the pressure to complete orders for buyers at the time. The demand for fast fashion and low-cost clothing motivated minimal oversight by clothing brands. Didn't lots of consumers speak out against the unsafe working conditions found in that factory building? They did, and a new accord on factory and building safety in Bangladesh was created and a deadline to sign it. So campaigning works, it does, but the Rani Plaza reforms have not touched 40% of the country's factories, and these tend to be the facilities that are exporting to various countries through small brands and retailers. Oh dear! Well, did the factory not have any trade unions? The Bangladesh garment industry felt that trade unions would increase workforce costs and endanger the industry. Then people who need the wages lose their jobs. There is also modern slavery. There is estimated to be millions of people in bonded labour in countries like China, Pakistan and Bangladesh. And a lot of factories producing for leading brands can afford to move to other parts of the world for cheaper labour. Then laws begin to allow trade unions and enforce minimum wages. But until then, we have a lack of fair employment practices. So, do people have no jobs? Exactly. You don't see many cheap clothes with the label made in the UK, where trade unions are strong and the laws to protect fair, just wages. Then what can we do? The hope now is that the world will continue to pay attention to these issues and stay informed. Never underestimate the power of the consumer. You can write to your local store to ask about their record regarding fair trade, or your local MP regarding a government trade aid decision. And have you heard about Tradecraft, the leading third-party certifier of fair trade products in the UK, using a market-based approach that gives farmers fair prices, workers safe conditions, and entire communities resources for fair, healthy, sustainable lives? Look for the fair trade on brands like Nomads, Skunk Funk. And think about changing your clothes and buying at a charity shop where the money goes to support a charity. Well, you've certainly given me a lot to think about. For a start, I'm going to go to that Tradecraft website.
God of the shared picnic, when 5,000 were blessed with the example of a child's generosity. May we, ever grateful for our daily bread, remember the hungry and hunger for justice to share what we can, so that all your children may be blessed. Amen.
In a world that's bitterly divided, in a world torn apart by hate and war, we must ask ourselves the question, just in your own neighborhood. There's only one. There's only one. There's only one. In which to there's only one in a country full of bitterness and anger, where injustice and fear blind our eyes, and trying to reach out